So I'm going to talk about this before lecture chant today. And this is the last chant of the book we started so long ago, Living by Vow by Shohaku Okamura. Appropriately the last one, because it's the last one that we do in our, generally speaking, that we do in our service. Yes, it is the last one, although some sanghas also have an after lecture chant. So anyway, as I understand it, this chant is a translation of the prescribed Japanese liturgical chant that is used by Soto Shu, which is the governing body in our Soto Zen lineage in Japan. So it came with Suzuki Roshi to San Francisco Zen Center, to Berkeley Zen Center, to Empty Nest Zen Center in Empty Nest Zendo in North Fork, and then to Bodhi Oak. So that's the lineage. And so the fact that it has come in that way is also an expression of our lineage. Shohaku offers a slightly different translation. He always likes to translate things himself from Japanese. And it may shine a little bit of light on its purpose. And this is his translation. An unsurpassed, most profound, subtle, and wondrous Dharma, even in 100,000, 10,000 kalpas, is difficult to encounter. I now see and listen, and I am able to accept and uphold it. I vow or wish to understand the true meaning of the Tathagata. And I thought, as I was thinking about this talk, I thought maybe it makes some sense at first to reflect a little on liturgy, especially since some of us may feel somewhat allergic to liturgy with all its bells and smells and so forth. And, but excuse me while I try to get rid of the frog in my throat. But liturgy is a very strong way in which the Buddhist tradition and Buddhist thought has been transmitted. And there are different ways of taking liturgy. And one is you consider it as a mindfulness practice, that you pay attention to every word and that you put your whole body, heart, and mind into the chant as a practice. And when you undertake and embody a practice like this, something happens. And so you could think about that. And so while I'm talking about all this, I want you to think about, I've got some questions. What do you consider to be the point of liturgy? And you can give me an intellectual answer if you want to, or an anthropological answer. Okay, but what does it mean to you? And what do you like about it? And what do you hate about it? And why? Here is a quote from a well-known teacher who's deceased now, John Dido Laurie. And he says, all of Zen's rituals point to the intimacy between the self and the 10,000 things. So that might be another thing to think about. And because, as you know, Dogen says, to study the self is to forget the self. To forget the self is to be illumined by the 10,000 things. So this is inherent in our practice. Also, he says it makes the visible the invisible. And I'll be talking a little bit about what's invisible in this chant. Bringing into awareness the shared experience of a group, bringing body and mind together. So it's not just internal, but external, or maybe it's not just external, but internal, embodied and shared, both embodied and shared, and deeply meaningful. Maybe you feel allergic to the religious rituals of your childhood, as many people do, or maybe you were raised with none. But perhaps there are other secular rituals that you enjoy and that have meaning for you. Maybe you find the ritual of inauguration deeply connecting, stirring, and connecting. Maybe you like singing the Star-Spangled Banner at football games, or watching the lighting of the Olympic lamp, or the procession of the national athletes. And maybe there's something that lifts your spirit when you see these things. And there is something about this shared experience that gets into our bones. And and then when you see an echo of it, a little memory of it, you stop for a minute and you feel connected to something nameless, larger than ourselves. And in this way, you have a little taste of awakening, not through thinking or non-thinking or studying or believing, but in your body, together with other bodies, together. And there's something about that words can't express in a way. But anyway, as for the content, here's another example of the before lecture chant, and this is from Upaya Zen Center. And that Upaya is from a different lineage, from Joan Halifax Roshi, through Bernie Glassman Roshi, and through Maizumi Roshi, who founded Zen Center of Los Angeles. The Dharma is vast and subtle. We now have a chance to hear it, study it, and practice it. We vow to realize its true meaning. So this one has a little more of the collective feeling, whereas ours is more personal, maybe. This one is clearer and more direct, expressing the purpose of such a chant quite clearly. It's saying, it's time to shift our focus from meditation and listen to a teaching. And we're doing it here together in a monastery, in our temporary virtual monastery. Study is also practice, and we consciously and deliberately turn our attention to it. I think that's kind of what this one is saying. I do it individually, and we do it collectively. Both and, individual and community, form and emptiness expressed. More concretely, this stanza says in Shohaku Okumura's words, since the Buddha's teaching is rarely encountered, now that I have met it, I want to deeply understand it. Usually when I talk about this chant, which is usually when there's someone new in the Zendo, I don't want them to be put off by this Sanskrit vocabulary. I usually translate the three Sanskrit words, Dharma, Kalpa, and Tathagata. And by the way, I've often thought that it's the weirdness of our liturgy with its chants, bowing, bells, and iconography and so forth, for all of that the majority of people who come to learn meditation don't come back, because that's can be quite off-putting. If it speaks to you, it speaks to you. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Even speaking to you, even if it speaks to you negatively, it can be interesting and connecting. So anyway, let's look at the vocabulary. At Dharma, the big D Dharma, as we know, means both the teachings about reality given by the Buddha and reality in all its fullness and emptiness, reality itself. It's both high and ultimate, and also deep and subtle. When we experience it as its highest, we see reality with wisdom. When we know it at its deepest, we see how to use compassion in skillful means towards all beings. Wisdom and compassion. Going back to Shohaku Okumura's translation, in the first line, we see again that it includes, that as so often happens in our chants, that there's an inclusion of a reference to our heritage in the Lotus Sutra. And so Okamura says, as I will read again, as an unsurpassed, most profound, subtle, and wondrous Dharma, which is actually a direct quote from the Lotus Sutra. So it's immediately harking back to the Mahayana and connecting us with our Mahayana tradition of awakening together with everyone. Okay, moving on to kalpa, which is a unit of measurement of time. Grace, as I've said, many people know this, Grace used to say that a kalpa is a length of time that it would take an eagle holding a scarf in its talons to fly over and scrape the top off Mount Everest with the scarf. That the length of time that it would take an eagle to do that, to reduce it to sea level. So it's a long time. Another description of a kalpa that I read is this. Imagine a storehouse with a capacity of 10 cubic miles filled with poppy seeds. Everybody know how big a poppy seed is? It's really small. It's filled with poppy seeds. Poppy seeds are very, very small. It's really hard to pick just one poppy seed up, but once a century, someone removes one poppy seed. A kalpa is how long it takes to empty the storehouse. A long time. It's maybe so long a time as to be effectively never, or beyond time, boundless, immeasurable time. That is, it's timeless. That is, now, just right now, strange and wondrous, ungraspable, because it has no length. Now has no length. Because when is the present? Is it now? Is it now? What about now? When I say it, it's already gone. So it's saying, wake up, pay attention. Now is the quote unquote time when we meet the Dharma in timeless time, letting go of our limited measurements, judgments, our conventional ways of seeing and thinking, which we do in Zazen. And lastly, Tathagata, which is a very interesting word that no one seems to know the origin of. And the Buddha used it to refer to himself, which kind of reminded me of Jesus referring to himself as the Son of Man. What does that actually mean? And its precise meaning is actually unknown, but it's been variously translated as the one who thus comes or the one who thus goes. And so etymologically, the last part you can see gatha, G-A-T-H-A, is related to gate, that Kazhan Hashi translates as going or gone or arriving or right here. It can mean either one. Well, actually, gata means going or gone, and agata with the A means, I'm sorry, gata means arriving, and agata means going or gone. So it can mean both. It means both. The implication is that Buddha's teaching is a truth that transcends the temporal, the personal, and that he is merely a conduit of transmission. And so this chant is not a paean to the speaker, but to the truth. So when it talks about hearing it, it's not that you're hearing it from me, it's more that you're hearing it through me as the Buddha spoke it. So etymologically, tata means thus, that is reality as it is, or as Suzuki Roshi would say, things as it is. And it's sometimes translated as thusness or suchness, but I think things as it is the best translation. Therefore, Tathagata could mean the one who has arrived or is arriving at suchness, at the truth, at the ineffable, timeless, boundless truth, always arriving, and using the gerund rather than the past participle because it's continuing. One who knows and sees the fullness, the wholeness of reality, immeasurable, indefinable, beyond the skandhas, freed from definition. The Buddha disappears and is still here, luminous and present in all bodhisattvas and sentient beings.